Hey, it's Tigman. Time for this week's edition of the Metal Box, our weekly discussion on all things hard rock and heavy metal. This week we've got a Metal Box exclusive, an interview with comedian Don Jamieson. He's best known for his work on VH1 Classics, That Metal Show, with Jim Florentine and Eddie Trunk. That show was canceled just before VH1 Classic went away. VH1 Classics now MTV Classic. We asked him if there is a possibility that the show will come back on maybe another network or in some capacity. Also talked to him about his brand new comedy CD. It's called Communication Breakdown on Metal Blade Records. Check it out here.
Hey, Tigman.
Don Jamieson, how are you, man?
I'm good. Yourself?
Doing all right. We're speaking with comedian Don Jamieson, who many know from his days with VH1 Classics, That Metal Show, which I want to get into, with you about, and a couple other things. But Terrorizing Telemarketers series, was that you and Jim Florentine? Yeah,
that's myself and my former co-host from That Metal Show. Longtime comedian.
Yeah.
And I always say, look, while you guys are out there making a good living and doing decent things for the community, we have nothing going on in the day. So we sit home and answer the phone and torture telemarketers and get revenge on them for the good people of this great country. So we have 6 volumes of calls out, believe it or not.
Yeah, I always remember Volume 4 with the Black Sabbath parody cover.
Yeah,
Volume 4
with Jim and I, as Ozzy on both sides of the album, holding up a telephone. So
that CD, it became like a cult classic around the radio station back in the day. One of the old morning shows had that sitting there forever in the studio, and they would play tracks off of it all the time. So that was probably one of my first introductions to stuff that you did and that Jim Florentine did. Of course, you also did stuff with Crank Yankers, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So in keeping with the prank calls, actually the Crank Anchors really kind of came out of Terrorizing Telemarketers, and Jim's big character Special Ed was really became a huge thing on that show, and that came from our CD. So something two guys just in Jersey decided to be silly and make our own prank call CDs turned into this crazy successful series.
How long have you been friends with Jim? Are you guys like childhood friends?
No, but we're definitely what they say, the brother from another mother.
Mm-hmm.
We both we both grew up in Jersey. We both had mullets around the same time.
Didn't
both
we all?
Drove this $300 car with the $800 stereo.
Of
like
course.
The same bands.
Oh, congratulations, Don, by the way. One of the top 10 metalhead comedians by Revolver magazine. That article came out last month. That's quite an honor.
Well, for me it is, because that's the world that I live in. I pride myself on being a comic who can perform pretty much for any audience, but obviously I do love the rock crowd, and to be up on that list with they have Dice on that list,
yeah.
And Jim Brewer's on the list, and so I'm definitely in great company there.
Now, you came in at number 3 as your old partner on That Metal Show, Jim Florentine, came in at number 2. Did he razz you a bit about coming in at a better slot on that list than you did?
I think there was a little pale or something going on.
I think so. But like you said, a lot of good company in there, too, with Dice. Even Kinnison was on there. I mean, just a lot of comedy legends made that list,
Yeah, well, look, again, for whatever little place in that world that I hold, I'm grateful. It is fun when I perform in nightclubs, you definitely get, the date nights, you get the guy and his girlfriend, they get dressed up for their weekend out on the town, looking sharp, and then at the table next to them is 6 guys in camouflage shorts and Slayer T-shirts. So
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You were just in the Albany area recently, I believe, right? Opening for John Valby. How did that go?
Yeah, up in Clifton Park.
Yes.
And it went great. His crowd is very much a rock vibe to it. No seats.
No.
So you're playing to a concert crowd.
Yeah.
And man, I do go out and open for bands, so that's the kind of crowd that I do feel comfortable in front of, but it's definitely not typical for most comics. You like the people to be seated, or they're having 1 or 2 drinks.
Sure.
And, this was 500 people in a beer hall,
yeah.
Screaming and yelling. And but again, I feel home in that crowd, man. I like to come out in attack mode and hit them over the head, and we all had a good time that night.
Yeah, fun venue, Upstate Concert Hall in Clifton Park there. And, I read on your bio, you actually worked at MTV back in the day?
Yeah. Well, when I was, when I was a young metalhead with hair down to my waist, there really wasn't a lot of options on where to go to work. Because I always said, look, I'm not going to cut my hair, I'm not going to wear a suit. So how many places could I work when I got out of college? And MTV was the place, man. And that was when MTV meant music television.
Yeah.
Obviously, years later, they haven't probably played music on MTV in about 20 years. But back then it was cool, man. We used to hang. All the original VJs were, I'm dating myself, but, those were the days where, you'd hang out in the office and, Adam Curry would give me hair feathering tips and downtown Julie Brown would be walking around. And it was, just a small, fun, creative type family. And that's where I really started to really discover comedians as well, because, we started having stand-up comedy shows on MTV, and I was like, wow, man, these people are so talented, just using their words to make people laugh, and, that's where the seed got planted for me.
Now, let's talk about VH1 Classics, that metal show. It's now MTV Classic. You did a lot of seasons. How many seasons of that metal show?
So we did 14 seasons of that metal show, and for people, I guess people who listen to your show, they're probably familiar with it, but for the people who aren't, it wasn't a shipbuilding show or a welding show. Yeah. It was a show where me and Eddie Trunk and Jim Florentine interviewed all our hard rock and metal idols, and 14 seasons, man, and I pretty much met everybody I ever wanted to meet in my life, that I've liked since I was 9 years old. Great
chemistry with you, Jim and Eddie Trunk, of course, and the only place you can go to find out the status on the original guitarist for Crocus, and I mean, I loved it. I mean, I'm like, like you, that 80s hair metal and all the metal, 70s hard rock metal, Judas Priest, Sabbath, all the way up through the hair metal in the 80s. I mean, so, finding out what these guys are up to and giving them a platform where you're really not going to hear much about them was a really good thing. And it was the highest rated show on the network, correct?
Yeah, well, but that's also, like being the smartest one on Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, it sounds nice, but it doesn't really mean much. But yeah, you're right, man. It's, the comedian Artie Lang said when he came on the show, he's like, what I love about this show? It's like you guys treat like Don Dokken like Jared Leto on The Tonight Show,
Exactly, so true.
And that's what it was about, those people are our heroes, and we always treated them, with respect, and obviously as we got to know them, we'd break stones with each other, and, it just gave a cool hang vibe to the show.
Well, everybody's always asking about that metal show. Is there a chance of it coming back? Has there been talk? I mean, why wouldn't MTV Classic want to have that on the network, or maybe a Spike TV or something? Has there been other talk of bringing it back?
Well, yeah, we are bringing it back in the year 2050.
Oh, okay. When we're
not,
when
none
of
us,
us,
and we're going to call it That Metal Hip.
2050.
Yeah, right. the Game of Thrones has the White Walkers. We'll be 3 white guys who walk.
Yes, exactly. So that's a no then. Doesn't look like it's happening.
Well, look, dude, in the hard rock and metal world, bands break up and they always end up coming back. People get kicked down in the business, but they always bounce back up. So, no, never say die, like Black Sabbath said, and we're going to keep on looking for a new home.
You got a brand new CD out, comedy CD. It's called Communication Breakdown. It's on Metal Blade Records. It's a live CD. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is my third CD for Metal Blade Records, which is, a great label to be on as a comedian, because one of the things, obviously, you don't want is anybody censoring your material, especially in this day and age where everyone's so sensitive. You want to be able to sort of say what you want to say and do what you want to do. And, with a label like Metal Blade that has bands like Cannibal Corpse and 6 Feet Under, pretty sure they're not going to ask me to tone down my material.
No, of course not. They've been good to you, though, huh? Good with the promotion and...
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff.
Again, it's cool, man. I do kind of have 2 different audiences, the comedy audience, has been digging the album so far, and, of course, the rock audience has been loving it as well. So, I'm uniting worlds through my comedy.
It's a beautiful thing. I love the Kiefer Sutherland track that you have on there, that you made available for people to listen to, Kiefer.
Yeah, no one could say I don't suffer for my art. After, I don't want to give away the whole story about meeting the actor Kiefer Sutherland, but let's just say, he enjoys, I think people know he enjoys a few adult beverages now and again.
Yes.
And after an evening of a lot of scotch and 6 Miller Lights, yada, 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 Jack Bauer gave me a hickey.
Oh, man. Great story. It was awesome. I love that track. I have to listen to the whole CD, but definitely enjoyed that. That's on the new CD, Communication Breakdown, the new comedy CD from Don Jamieson. Don, a couple of quick questions here from fans. I got a couple of fan questions here. Guy by the name of Justin wants to know another show that they'd like to see brought back. Will Crank Yankers ever make a return?
That's a good question too. That's another one where, doubtful, but comedy goes in cycles, and you never know when the world's going to be ready for puppets making prank calls again. So
that was originally on Comedy Central, right? And then it didn't end up on MTV 2 years later.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. So it kind of did come back for a while. Whether it has a third life, I have no idea.
Okay, and the other question is, always like this question, Matthew Michael Mann wants to know your top 3 Desert Island albums.
Well, Matthew, obviously one of them has to be the first album I ever bought, which was Kiss Destroyer.
Nice.
So you'd have to have that in there.
Yep.
My hero of all time, my idol is Lemmy from Motorhead, so I'd have to bring a Motorhead album with me. I think you'd have to take the classic Ace of Spades.
Sure.
And then, because I've always, again, my whole life has been rock and comedy, so I'd have to bring a comedy album as well with me, and I'd probably bring
Communication Breakdown?
Listen, the last person I want to hear is me.
Yeah.
I want to hear a real comic, so I would take George Carlin.
Yes, awesome.
Occupation Fool, which is probably the first comedy album I ever heard. So, yeah, I'd need definitely something to keep me laughing, when I'm just basically talking to coconuts all day.
There you go. Well, very cool. Don Jamieson's new CD is out, Communication Breakdown. Pick it up. And I've seen you do the comedy routine before. I love your stand-up. And I got to hang with you at the Chance in Poughkeepsie recently at that benefit, which was a lot of fun. Had a good time.
Yeah, I'm just so happy that venue is still around.
Right?
The same as when I was up in Clifton Park.
Yeah.
That was a venue called Northern Lights.
Yes.
And that's a sort of a legendary venue for that part of the country.
Right.
And, I lived in New York City when all the rock clubs were shutting down, and it made me so sad. So I'm so glad that some of these, legendary places are still around. And guess what? It still has a ton of character. And what it's about. It's not about can you get sushi while you're watching a rock band.
Exactly.
It's about, can bands come in here and still kick ass? Yes, they can.
Awesome. Don Jamieson, the great comedian, joining us on the Metal Box this week. Really appreciate it. And go check him out, donjamieson.com. And I know you're on all the social media platforms too, right? Twitter, Facebook.
I'm on everything. Pinterest, LinkedIn, whatever you want.
Awesome. Well, best of luck with the new CD, and thanks for taking some time out to chat with us today, man.
Thanks, Tig, man.
Awesome, man. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks again, dude.
And that'll do it for this week's edition of the Metal Box. Thanks for tuning in. The rock and roll limo has arrived. We'll see you next week.
Cool. Thank you.